Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, apologies. Still haven't figured out a problem with my webcam. So, although you can hear me, it's not syncing up with the picture for some reason. If anybody knows why, please feel free to comment, because it's really starting to do my head in now. Anyway, yesterday I told you a bit about a oxycodone that I was on, one of the tablets that I'm taking. Just quickly, I had a bit of what I consider good news. Last week I'd been asked to see a woman within my doctor's surgery. I believe she's a psychologist. I was never actually told. Anyway, I saw her last week. It was only a brief encounter. I think she was expecting to meet up with me and for me to be, the stereotypical pill junkie, which obviously I'm not. I'm just desperate to get off these tablets. So I was only with her a short time. She says that she deals with a lot of people that are addicted to prescription drugs and that have had help but have underlying issues. So no matter what she does, they still go back to the drugs. However, she said she realised that wasn't the case with me. And she was going to look into hopefully getting me a place in hospital, something where I could be under surveillance because of my epilepsy. And yes, she did text me yesterday and said that she had had some positive feedback from various people, and she was going to write to me with some different options. So I've got my fingers crossed for that. It can only be good news, really. So I don't know how long it'll take, mind, but it's more positive than being told that I just have to take one tablet less a month. Anyway, that was a quick bit of news. So today I just want to tell you a bit more about my epilepsy and the pill that I take for that. I first found I had epilepsy when I think I was probably about 7. I used to share a room with my younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me, rather. Sorry. He woke up one night. He was scared to death, bless him. I'd had a seizure, managed to bang my head against the cabinet next to the bed, and then I'd slipped under the bed. So he'd woken up and he'd seen me halfway under the bed, with my face pouring with blood, and then he'd gone and woken my mum and dad up. My dad was a paramedic for over 20 years, so he saw me, rang an ambulance. I believe I was admitted, saw the specialist and was told that I had epilepsy. Over the years that followed, it was only ever during the night that I'd have seizures. I was on Epilim, which a lot of epileptics are familiar with. And then when I was 9, I went to see my consultant. I saw him regularly, and he told me that I'd grown out of it. So brilliant. like over the moon. It didn't really affect me anyway when I was a child. I never really knew I had it. It didn't make a difference to me. So anyway, carried on. And then I got to, I think I was about 20, 21. I just got back from the Dominican Republic, had a lovely holiday, and then I'd gone on a date, had a couple of glasses of wine, came home, woke up in the morning, and I felt really rough. I couldn't understand it because I'd only had a couple of glasses of wine. I remember getting out of bed and just feeling really not with it. And that was it. I had a seizure. Lucky thing for me is I don't know when I have a seizure. I always think for the people that see you having one or find you, it must be horrible, especially if it's somebody you know and care about, to see them fitting and hurting themselves and you not being able to do anything. It must be horrible. That day I had a fit. I was living at home still, and luck would have it that my mum hadn't left for work yet. She usually just would shout upstairs to me goodbye, but she said for some reason she came up to see me that morning. Lucky for me, because she found me on the floor. Got my dad, called an ambulance. I was admitted into hospital, and I was told that my epilepsy was back. Well, not so much back. They thought it had just been laid dormant for all these years, and just my age, hormones do affect epilepsy a lot. They triggered it off. They weren't quite sure at that point what sort of epilepsy I would be having, because I'd had the seizure in my bedroom, and then I think I had another one in the ambulance on the way to Hull Royal, and one when I got there. I'm not too sure, I don't remember it very well. When I have a seizure, a grand mal seizure, which is the ones that people are most familiar with, where you fall to the floor, you shake around, I go very stiff, stare in front of me. When I come round, I don't know anybody around me. I don't recognise anyone. I panic for a bit, and then I'll just drift off to sleep, because fits can only last for a few minutes, but they really do wear you out because you're using every muscle in your body at such a fast rate. So they told me it'd come back. I think they tried me on the Epilim initially, but that didn't work. It was an unfortunate age to get epilepsy, because I was living in a town where I think I'd only been there for about a year. Great town, Beverley. Was making a lot of new friends. Had been going out an awful lot. Drinking, just like any normal 21-year-old. Working, the norm. Still carried on working. Still tried to go out like I did before, but I quickly realised that I couldn't keep the same pace, and I did have quite a few seizures, an awful lot of seizures really. They always seem to be in unfortunate places as well. I remember having one outside the front of my house. I'd just got home and I'd felt poorly, and I knew it was my epilepsy, and a friend had dropped me off, and I used to have big iron gates at my front door, or the front entrance, and I remember just going to open the gate and thinking, oh, I feel really rough. And that was the last thing I remembered. And I fitted. But unfortunately, I fell on my face onto the concrete. Again, luckily, it was when I was living with my parents. They'd heard a car pull up. They'd heard me get out the car. And I always wear heels. So they'd heard my heels. And then they'd heard the gate creak, and then I hadn't appeared. So my dad looked out the front window, and unfortunately seen me laid on the front fitting. I know I laugh about it, and a lot of you think it's not funny, but there's no point dwelling on it and getting all sad and making yourself feel depressed about it. You've just got to, deal with it. And sometimes when I have had fits, they've been in funny circumstances, and afterwards you can't help but laugh. I know that particular time when I fell on my face and I had black eye, I had cuts because I'd fallen on it was all bits of like gravel as well that I'd fallen on too, so my face was a mess. And eventually, a few weeks later, I went out to the pub, and a girl had said to me in the pub that used to be my local. She said, "Oh, I heard what happened to you. I'm really sorry." So I said, "Oh, it's fine." And she'd said, "What happened to the other girl?" So I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Oh, the girl that bottled you." That's the problem with living in small towns. The stories that go around. When I told her what had actually happened to me, she was really mortified, bless her. It didn't bother me, it just made me laugh. Anyway, so for a good few years past, so I was over 25 when it started to calm down finally again, and I wasn't having seizures anymore. Everything seemed good, and then just a little over 3 years ago, maybe, can't remember the date exactly, I'd had a bang to my head. I think it knocked me unconscious, only briefly, maybe for a minute, but it'd been quite a blur to my head. And then a few weeks had passed, and I was living at my mum and dad's again, and I was just doing the dishes. I was in by myself. I remember feeling a bit funny, and next thing you know, I'm laid on the floor having a fit. Was admitted to hospital again, told that my epilepsy was back again. They weren't sure to what extent, and over the months that followed, they learned that it was worse than it had been when I'd been in my 20s. I would have the grand mal seizures, but what I was also getting was these brief absences for a second or 2 seconds. That's all it'd be. I'll forget what I'm saying or doing sometimes. So I'll be mid-conversation and I'll just, a couple of seconds, I'll just think, what am I talking about? And it'll be that brief. But unfortunately, they class that as some form of seizure. And along with that, I shake an awful lot. In all honesty, in the last 6 months, it seems to have got a lot better. But the last year, it was all the time. I could only pick one thing up at once. Otherwise, I'd just end up dropping it. And again, it's made worse by your triggers. Everybody has different triggers when they're epileptic. People always talk about strobe lights. They don't actually affect me in the slightest. My 2 main triggers are stress and lack of sleep. Even if I've just had a late night or I can't sleep very well, the next day I will know about it. Also as well, if I was to drink alcohol, that would affect my epilepsy. I don't drink alcohol now. If I do, it'll be for a treat, and it'll be sort of 1 JD or 1 glass of wine, 1 vodka and lemonade. That'll be it for me. That doesn't actually bother me really now. Probably to do with my age, but drink's not a big part of my life anymore, not like when I was in my early 20s. They tried and tested me on all sorts of medication. At one point I was in hospital for, it was about 19 weeks. And the tablet that they put me on, and which I'm on now, is a tablet called clomazepam. It's a muscle relaxant. I have to take that 3 times daily. As I take 2 tablets in the morning, 2 at lunch, and then 3 in the evening. And then if I'm ever feeling not great, or I feel like I could possibly have a fit, then I can take one of these tablets, or I usually take 2. I find 2 work better and quicker. They also dissolve in your mouth, which makes them better, because you want them in your system as quickly as possible. I found them to be a brilliant tablet for my epilepsy. Like I say, I've tried, it's suddenly gone really dark in here. I've tried everything. I was on the Epilim, pregabalin, gabapentin. They even tried diazepam. They say that can help epilepsy. It didn't affect mine. It's really dark. Just bear with me. It's going to start raining now. So a day, I'm supposed to take 7 tablets a day for my clomazepam. I usually end up taking an extra couple every day, so that's 9 tablets a day of the clomazepam. I don't get any side effects from them, thankfully. They can make some people very drowsy. They don't make me drowsy. Apparently they're also quite an addictive drug, but I don't find that. I just see that they stop me or help me to have a lot less fits, and for that I'm very grateful. Don't even got a wonky webcam, but now you can hardly see me. I can hear the rain outside as well. So that's a little bit about my epilepsy, how I got it, why I got it. What I would say to anybody that's found out they've got epilepsy is don't panic. People are very quick to tell you all the horror stories and the bad things, when in reality you can just live a normal life. Before I had the problems with the oxycodone and the stomach ulcers and what have you, I could work fine with my epilepsy. It wasn't an issue. If I ever did it at work, sometimes I'd know about it. Try and make your employees aware that you've got epilepsy though. I mean, I know a lot of people will say don't tell them if you're going for a job. It's not the best idea, really. They should be aware of what you've got, because if you do have a seizure and they didn't know that you've got epilepsy and they don't have anyone there that knows what to do, then you might be in trouble. So please do advise wherever you work and people that if you're spending any length of time with. It's not something to be embarrassed about or ashamed of. There's a lot worse things in life that you can have. It's only epilepsy. Again, like I said yesterday, if you want to know any more about the drug or the other drugs that I've taken for epilepsy, please feel free to ask me, to subscribe. Or if you just want to chat about epilepsy, it scares a lot of people, I know, when they find out they've got it. And I know, especially when you're in your 20s and you suddenly have it thrown at you, it can be quite daunting, especially if you start reading up on the internet about epilepsy. It can hit you quite hard, and be scary, and it really isn't that bad. And that's coming from me, who has the grand mal seizures, and I also have these absences daily, unfortunately. But they don't affect my working life normally. If I wasn't on all these other tablets, you can. The only thing that has affected me, and that I really wish I could do, is drive. I don't know what the rules are now. You used to have to be a year seizure free before you could drive. I don't know if it's still the same, but because I have these little absences in the day and they're classed as fits, it's unlikely I'm going to be driving anytime soon. Instead, I will continue to drive everybody mad. Anyway, that's all I've got for you on epilepsy today. I will be back, desperately trying to get this webcam sorted because it is infuriating. I'll have to check my iPad, might have one on there. Anyway, I hope you're all well. Have a great day. Lots of love and be safe.